LeBron James has a 16-year-old son you may have heard about named Bronny. He's a sophomore in high school, and this extension for LeBron, the 2 years, will get him to 2022, 2023, right around the time that Bronny would be eligible to join the NBA. LeBron was on the Uninterrupted podcast, which he has a financial stake in. Speaking of mogul, always got his hands in something, right? He is a businessman, as Jay-Z would say. You guys probably didn't think I knew that. But LeBron essentially weighing in and essentially saying about a year and a half ago that I don't care how many titles I win. I don't care if I go back to Cleveland and win one. I don't care if I win one with the Lakers, whatever. The best thing that could ever happen to me on a basketball court, no matter how many Larry O'Briens I hoist, would be this.
What was the greatest achievement of my life? If I'm on the same court as my son in the NBA, that will be number one in my lifetime as an NBA player.
Play together.
Or play against.
Now, this was said 18 months ago. Fast forward, he's got a title with the Lakers. His son continues to ascend. He's 16. Jay, is this a possibility of happening?
He's LeBron James. He's arguably the greatest player to ever play the game, regardless of whether you have him 1, 2. I know Paul Pierce has him in the, just barely in the top 5, which is ludicrous, by the way. But still.
It is.
Like, it's the greatest player in the game. So my thing is, Bronny James.
I know, but I'm just hearing it again.
Well, that's Paul Pierce. That's a whole different conversation. I don't want to go on a tangent. Let's get back here to what we were talking about. All I'm saying is Bronny James is in a position to go to a top-tier college. If he goes to a top-tier college and if he plays decently,
consider
he continues to develop, he'll make an NBA roster. There are a lot of people who are on NBA rosters who are right there on the cusp of being in the G League, being overseas. But this reality of business is all about relationships. It's all about relationships. You cannot tell me, now that could be with the Lakers or it could be with another organization, that a team would not draft Bronny James, granted he keeps developing, okay?
That's the key.
In order for him to potentially say, hey, maybe your dad would like to come here and play with you at the tail end of his career. That would do, and Key just talked about this, the incentivization. Is that even a word? I just made it up. I said it.
It is now.
It is now. For a team to do that, to say, come to my organization, increase the value of my organization, fill the seats with fans, and play with your son and live out your dream at the tail end. If the Lakers can't do that, some organization will take a chance on Bronny James to do that.
As long as he continues to develop, I mean, it's hard. Look, he's not a 6'7" freshman. You know what I'm saying? He's a smaller guard that's a freshman in high school that has some time to develop into his body. When you think about LiAngelo Ball 6 years ago was a itty-bitty dude.
You mean LaMelo?
I mean LaMelo.
LaMelo. There's a lot of balls.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. He was a small. Now he's a 6'7.5", 6'8" guard. Mm-hmm. So as he continues to grow and get better at it, then yes, I'm an owner of the Sacramento Kings, for instance. Just use that team. I'm willing to sign LeBron James to help me build an infrastructure, fan base, whatever it is that we're looking for at that time. And if I draft his son and bring him on the team, that son, obviously, we're not just drafting a guy because he's walking down the street. He's got to have some ability to be able to play, right? And so you would think that LeBron James and his crew is making sure that his son is developing at that level where he'll be able to live that dream. I hope he continues to develop.
But Bronny James does not need to be 6'7" to be drafted. You can draft.
No, you
Bronny,
don't need to be 6'7". I'm just saying, as you continue, because he's so young, how hard is it to evaluate somebody in the 9th grade?
No, I think he's a sophomore.
He's a sophomore. 10th grade.
10th grade.
Yep.
All I'm going to say, though, is let's say hypothetically, and this won't happen because obviously being around great players and having access to the resources and facilities, his game will continue to blossom, continue to develop. But let's say hypothetically his game doesn't develop and it stays the same. Maybe he just grows a couple inches. Maybe he's 6'3", 6'4". You're going to take a chance on him in the second round because of the opportunity. Because of the opportunity that LeBron James might come to your organization to play a year with Bronny James' son. Or the Lakers will find some way to bring him on board. I'm just saying if you're an owner or a GM, you're looking at this differently especially if he doesn't develop any second round, later in the second round. So many teams stash people in overseas for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, let him develop.
Yeah, you're telling me you wouldn't do that with Bronny James for the opportunity to bring LeBron James to your organization to increase awareness? You talk about an injection or an infusion of energy with Russell Westbrook going to D.C. Why wouldn't you look at this situation the same thing if you're an owner or a GM?
I think that's a great point.
No, you do. And to my note, the only professional athlete father-son duo was Ken Griffey Jr. That's the only one that I can think. I've been sitting here trying to think. I know there's a lot of fathers who's played, whether it's Michael Thompson and Clay or the Barry family, but not at the same time.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I want to give you some context on age. You mentioned LeBron here at 36 and what essentially is going to happen when Bronny is 16, 20-year age difference or thereabouts if you want to call it. Great call, Key. Ken Griffey Jr. and Sr. joining the Mariners.
Stole your notes.
Back in the day. Yeah, you're beating me at my own job. Don't be too good at this. I got to fill in the gaps here a little bit. The elder Griffey Sr. was 40. Griffey Jr. was 20. So right there, right around.
We all know what 2 more for LeBron means. That means 6 championships for LeBron. And that means the GOAT debate gets kicked into a place I can't even fathom. Let me just refer to that as talk show hosts' nirvana. Nothing could be better than that because basketball is more popular than golf, and LeBron James is one of 2 athletes in the world right now chasing GOAT status and chasing a ghost to get there. I will explain. Tiger Woods is doing the same thing. Tiger Woods has won 15 career majors. And there are people who will say Tiger Woods is not the greatest player in the world unless he catches Jack Nicklaus at 18. And there are people, of course, who will say LeBron James is not the greatest basketball player until and unless he catches Michael Jordan at 6. These are, as far as I can think of, the only sports where that is relevant right now. And let me explain, just going through a bunch of them off the top of my head. You might think Serena Williams. Here's why I do not put Serena Williams in this category, despite the fact that she is still chasing the record for most career slams. It is my opinion, and I think the opinion of most people who follow the sport and care about it, that Serena Williams is already the greatest player in the history of women's tennis, whether she gets that record or not. I don't think there's much debate about that. So I don't believe she's chasing a ghost. Yes, she's chasing a record, but I believe she is the GOAT, whether she gets there or not. Men's tennis. You have 3 players. They're not chasing ghosts. They're not chasing Rod Laver or Pete Sampras or John McEnroe. They're fighting it out against each other. When they're all done, one of the 3 of them will be the greatest player of all time. Federer, Nadal, Djokovic. One of the 3 of them will emerge as the greatest of all time. They're not chasing ghosts. Go through some of the other sports. Tom Brady, I believe, already has staked his claim to being the greatest of all time. He's not chasing anything. Patrick Mahomes, you might argue, is chasing him, but that's so far away that it's much too soon to even have the conversation. What other sports haven't we gotten to? Baseball, Mike Trout. Mike Trout has got to be a decade away from that conversation. Yes, he's chasing it, but he's a long way away from that conversation being germane. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the significance of a 6th championship for LeBron is almost impossible to put into words. It would be the most, I think, significant milestone that any player could currently reach that feels within reach. Again, Mike Trout, check back with me on that one. 6 or 7 years from now, we can have the conversation. But it feels to me like the Lakers are now set up to be in a position to win 2 more championships in the next 3 years. I asked Kendrick Perkins and I asked Jay Williams on Get Up this morning. They're locked into at least 3 more years together. How many do they win? And both of them, both Jay Will and Kendrick Perkins, said you have to figure at least 2. 2 is the magic number. So you can cast your vote on my Twitter page, again, at ESPN Greeny. Let me know what you think. We'll keep track of that as we continue with the program here. I can also mention a new sponsorship that we have. When questions find you, Merrill Edge Self-Directed Investing has personalized tools and insights to help you find answers. Get started at merrilledge.com/withinreach. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer, member SIPC. Okay. Well, let's bring Brian Windhorst into the conversation and see what he thinks of it all. He's on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. He hosts the Hoop Collective podcast and is, of course, one of our best and my favorite NBA analysts. Windy, that's sort of the setup here. With the re-signing today of Anthony Davis and the extension the other day to LeBron, if you were to make a wager right now, as they are locked in for at least the next 3 seasons together, how many titles do you think is a safe bet they will put together in the next 3 years?
Can I take a quick diversion to that golf thing,
Sure.
comparing to Tiger to LeBron? One of the
course.
things that Jack Nicklaus has on his resume that makes his status so incredible is, in addition to the 18 majors, I believe he has 17 runners-up in majors.
Yes.
Which establishes him as the greatest major player of all time because he has so many. That is seen as a burnishment to his resume. But LeBron, who is 4-6 in finals, those 6 losses are not seen as burnishing. Those are seen as negative. And even if he does win 2 more, I think the people who defend Jordan will say, well, Jordan was 6-0 and LeBron was 6-6 or 6-7 or 6-8 or whatever it is. It's interesting to me that LeBron sort of gets penalized in his sport, I feel, whereas Jack, I don't think at all. I think it helps him.
Can I just say
the
something
Lakers-
quickly about that? You're
Yeah,
so
please.
right. I thoroughly agree. People tried to do the same thing with Brady when they said, well, look, Montana was 4-0 in Super Bowls and Bradshaw was 4-0 and Brady, I believe, was 4-2 at the point that he won his 5th, whatever it is. And I always say, the only way that 4-0 in the Super Bowl is better than 4-2 in the Super Bowl is if you only played 4 years. Otherwise, you are now penalizing someone for winning playoff games. It is as though Joe Montana losing the NFC Championship game to the Giants and Jeff Hostetler was better for his legacy than if he had won that game and made it to the Super Bowl and lost. To exactly your point, for LeBron James, making it to the finals is better than not making it to the finals. So I completely agree with you. I wanted to add to your point. Winnie, back to you.
So LeBron has talked about this vaguely. I mean, he's never going to take a shot at the king, but he's talked about how he feels like that he has been available for his teammates is something that he feels is a strong pillar in his career. And I think he's codedly talking about, listen, I've picked myself up off of terrible losses and come back. I've gone to the finals 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years in a row, brought myself back. Whereas Jordan, and certainly we saw in The Last Dance that it's not an apples-to-apples comparison, but Jordan did have to yield a couple of times. And had he not yielded, he would have more than 6 and have more than 6 finals. But I do think LeBron feels like that should be credited for him.